Hello everyone, welcome to another video on the channel and welcome to another GT Sports driving tips video. And in this one we are going to talk about racecraft once again. Now it has been a wee while since I last did a video regarding racecraft, but it is one of my sort of favourite subjects when it comes to racing. The decisions that drivers make during races that influence their sort of finishing position and finishing time. So what is racecraft? Well, there's not really a simple definition for it, but I've kind of touched on it there just a wee second ago. To me, racecraft is all about the decisions you make during a race. Now the purpose of a race is really to get from A, the green flag, to B, the checkered flag, in the quickest time possible. And the decisions you make during a race are going to very much influence how all that turns out. It's going to influence your lap times, it's going to influence your finishing time, and it's going to influence your finishing position. Now if you make good decisions during the race that cost you as little time as possible, you should finish in a higher position. If you make bad decisions that end up costing you more time, then there's a chance that you'll finish in a worse position than you possibly could have. Now a lot of people get caught up in the moment of just racing the cars around them and sort of lose sight of the bigger picture. This video we're going to take a look at a couple of races. We'll sort of talk about through the decisions I've made, some of the decisions other drivers made. You might agree with some of them, you might disagree with some of them, but hopefully I can pass on some of the things that I've learned over my years of racing on sims, and maybe you can take some of them forward into your racing and maybe start getting some better results. Personally, I feel racecraft is just as important as raw speed when it comes to racing, and the thing is that you may well reach a plateau on raw speed, but you can always improve your racecraft. So the races we're going to look at here are actually for my community championship that I do. It's a one make championship in the BMW Z4. It's 20-minute sprint races, endurance style. Tyre wear at times 4, fuel at times 2, racing hard, medium and soft tyres available, with the only tyre rule being that you must run the hard tyres for 3 laps. So as a grid start in these races, we started in P3. Coming into turn 1 is always going to be a little bit dodgy. We'll slow the footage down here. We are on the outside. We see the car TX3 Halbstad coming into view, so we know we've not got the inside. He's actually gone very deep into turn 1. He's going to make contact with P3. He's actually going to slow down here and try to let that car back through because he's made a mistake. Unfortunately it does it right in front of me. We make slight contact. He's still trying to slow down, so I go to the left. Unfortunately make contact with Jones here, but doesn't work out too badly. We've lost one position off the start through P2's managed to make a really good start, which we'll just take a look at. But it just goes to show, you know, grid starts are always a bit dodgy. There is a little bit of luck involved in getting through a grid start cleanly, but you know, use the track that you can see is available to you. Try and base your decisions on what other drivers are doing around you. If you've got a drive on your inside and you know you can't go for the apex, go a little bit wider, try and give yourself some space. But again, very much a grid start, particularly in a sort of public lobby or a daily race where you can't really trust or don't really know the drivers around you, are going to be a little bit more dodgy than what you've seen there. Obviously this is a community championship where everybody's trying to race a little bit more fairly and respectfully. But if you want to see an example of a great start, let's jump on board with TX3 Hash. So he qualified down in 6th place. He's in the inside. He moves slightly to the right here just to sort of give himself some space for the braking zone. Brakes nice and early, sees his TX3 teammate going deep, clips the apex nicely, keeps a nice tight line, powers out in a straight line and goes from 6th position all the way up to 2nd. So a fantastic start there from TX3 Hash. So moving towards the end of lap number 1 here, we had dropped a little bit behind P2 and 3, but they're going to have a little bit of a squabble into the chicane. You can see how much time that actually cost two drivers when they're fighting. We sort of closed a gap down of about 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe even 10 car lengths, I'm not entirely sure. But we're right on their tail now after just a couple of corners just through them fighting. So they're going to continue fighting down into turn number 1 here. Now, they're very much focused on what they're doing, so they're maybe not going to know where I am at this point. So I'm pretty sure they're going to contest the apex. And I know if I follow them into the apex, I'm probably going to get held up or possibly hit one of them. Just through not being able to carry the speed that I want to. So my decision here is to go deep into turn number 1. I've also got the Swiss driver behind me that I need to think about, so I need to make sure I get a good exit and try to avoid any contact that these two drivers in front of me may well have. So we go nice and deep into turn 1, take a nice wide line, but what that does allow us to do is get on the throttle nice and easily. P2 and 3 have obviously made it through the corner nicely, but that does allow us to defend our position from the Swiss driver. So that's why we went so deep into turn number 1 there. rather than trying to follow them to the apex. Again, Jones is trying to go around the outside there of Hash, but not quite made a move. That forces us to go a little bit wide. Again, it's a similar story there. We just make sure we go a little bit wider at the apex there, just to make sure we can defend our position from the Swiss driver, make sure we can get a good exit. With this kind of close racing, you're not only thinking about the cars in front of you, you've also got to think about the cars behind you. So do your best not to compromise your speed and line through the behaviour of the two cars in front of you to give the car behind you a little bit of a run at you. So we'll go forward here to the end of lap number 2. Now, we'll slow down the footage here. Jones has managed to get to the inside of Hash here for the chicane. Now, what I would do here if I was a TX3 driver, I would have surrendered this position by this point, and I'd have broke a little bit early. That way I'd be allowed to filter back in between Jones's car and my own car and get a better line through the chicane. But he does try to fight it a little bit too long in my opinion, which has meant he's going to take a very much a compromised line through the chicane here. This is actually going to compromise myself a little bit. You can also see he has to cut that corner just to try and stay on the track, and he's also in danger of losing the back end there. So just purely from, I think, fighting a position just a little bit too long, he put himself in a lot of danger there. Risk of a penalty, risk of an accident, and really did slow himself down quite a lot, and he's now going to be under pressure from myself. So onto the main straight we come here. We're in the slipstream of TX3 Hash. He's also got the slipstream of Jones, so it's unlikely we're going to be able to make a move into turn number 1 here. We'll just sort of poke our nose out. I'm not entirely sure what that driver's braking point is. That's just to give myself a little bit of room to play with in the braking zone, just in case I tend to brake a little bit later than them. I don't want to go into the back of them. It's something I very often do into a big braking zone, is just move my car offline from the car in front just ever so slightly, just so I don't get surprised by where they brake. Just can sort of, we know how sensitive the penalty system is to little taps in the back end of another car. And I just find that's something that I do in races that sort of helps me to avoid those very irritating penalties. Now, coming out of the right hander here, TX3 Hash is going to kind of lose the back end, and that's going to give us a little bit of a run down towards the Dunlop curve. We've got the slightest little bit of overlap, so Hash can't go fully defensive. Nice and light on the brakes, we get it stopped nicely into the apex of the hairpin. Looked at the radar, always use your radar, top tip, get the radar up there whenever you're not using anything else, and we get that move made. Now, TX3 Hash in the sort of post-race chat after that one wasn't particularly happy with the move. So let's take a look at it from the chase cam. I thought it was as clean as a whistle. I thought it was a good overtake. You can see here we've all got a very, very slight overlap, but it's just enough to sort of not let the TX3 driver go defensive. He tries to fight it around the outside, but by the time we get to the sort of third part of the corner, we've got our car fully ahead and we take the normal line. Now, in fairness to TX3 Hash, he did take a look at the replay after the race and apologised, or not apologised, but did say, yeah, it was an absolutely fair move. So all well and good in that one. And to be honest with you, that was pretty much my race over. We're up into third place. We couldn't catch Jones, we sort of kept him fairly honest for the majority of the race, and we took a third place in that one. So on to the second race in this series. It is a reverse grid. When you go into the second race, we were starting third to last. It's another grid start here. We get a reasonable start, get a little bit squeezed from the car on the right hand side there, but we've got lots of track in front of us now. When there's got this many cars in front of you coming into a heavy braking zone at the start, there's always going to be a concertina effect, so you have to be very careful. You're going to have to brake a little bit early. Don't try and be a hero, don't try and make up 5 positions at the start. You're just going to end up bumping people, giving yourself a penalty, giving other drivers a penalty. It's just not worth the risk, and it's not worth ruining other people's races. So we're sort of being very aware. Again, make good use of your radar. You can see I've got 3 cars on my radar there. I knew I had to go wide into the right hander and not try and pinch the apex. So yeah, just use that radar, just be aware what other cars are, and avoid these little unnecessary contacts and these unnecessary risks of silly penalties. Now, we did actually make a strategic mistake in this race. Starting at the back, we really should have started on the hard tyres. Done our 3 laps on the hard tyres, then moved on to the softs. But unfortunately I forgot to change the tyre before the race started, so we've actually started the race here on soft tyres. So I'm going, again, a little bit of a tip here. I know I've got to make the best of these soft tyres, so I'm going to have to be a little bit more aggressive than I would normally be in my driving. So I'm fairly sure that TX3 Hash here is on the hard tyres, just given his mid corner speed is much lower than mine. So I know I need to get by him fairly quickly, but he's doing a good job of staying ahead at the moment. We're not going to make any unnecessary lunges or dives to try and get ahead, because that will just slow us down even more. In these kind of areas of the race, if I find myself in this kind of position, stuck behind a slower driver, I'll just start looking after the tyres where I can, and then make the move at a more sensible place. So we're coming into the main straight here, so this probably be a decent opportunity to try and make an overtake if we could get a good slipstream. Now Hash has also got the slipstream of the TLR car in front of us. Now this is a bit of a dodgy situation here. I know I'm on the soft tyres, and I'm pretty sure both of these cars are on the hard tyres, so I know I can brake a lot later than them, but I've got a wall of car in front of me, so I have to respect that as well. To respect that they're going to have to brake a little bit earlier than me. But we do get one move made. We're up into P8 now. We're still stuck behind Hash here. Now he should have worked out by now that I'm on the soft tyres, given just how much I'm all over the back of him. With him being on the hard tyres, I'd have said that the best move that driver could have made was just to let me go. He's going very defensive into every corner. You can just see the gap to the cars in front of us opening up corner by corner. He's under a lot of pressure, and he's eventually going to run wide here, and it's going to be a very, almost a exact replica of the move he made in the last race. Slight bit more overlap, but a lot easier to outbrake that car because we're on different compounds of tyres at this point. So this is up into 7th position. That's been a fairly handy opening lap and a half. So we very quickly catch up to P5 and 6 here. Now, with all due respect to those drivers there, you might have seen it at the beginning of the race, they're B-rated drivers, and they're in fairly high positions because of the reverse grid. Now we closed in a gap of around about 1.5 seconds to them within less than a lap. So the way I would look at that if I was a driver like that if a driver's caught me by 1.5 seconds in a lap, I wouldn't fight it too hard. And in fairness to Coolio here, he makes a slight mistake at the Schumacher S. He gives us a run down in towards the left-hander, and just stays there and doesn't roll out the red carpet, makes me make the overtake, but again doesn't fight it very hard. Now Sophie here on the other hand doesn't look at things that way, let's put it that way. So after we got by Coolio there, we're around about a second and a half behind Sophie here, and again around about I think it was less than a lap, we managed to close that gap down. Now really, I would just sort of tell myself I'm not in a race with that driver. If I was Sophie here, I would have stayed to the right hand side and let me go down the inside to the chicane. Instead, I think she more than anything else makes a double move in her defence, which was a little bit naughty, and then going into the last corner here, she's going to do another thing that I thought was a little bit below the belt. She's just going to stay off the throttle and park it on the apex and try and hold me up there to make contact. Not necessarily an illegal move, but just a little bit naughty and kind of pointless. She's then going to fight it very hard down here into turn number 1, and to be honest with you, at that point you've annoyed me enough that I'm just not going to take any prisoners down into turn 1. I'm making the move regardless. So what's the kind of tip here? If you're going to be that defensive against somebody, then don't be surprised if they're going to be very aggressive back to you when it comes to the overtake. And what's the risks that come with that? The risks are that the driver behind that's trying to overtake you gets it wrong, punch you off, you make contact, you get a penalty, or you end up and you will just end up losing bucket loads of time. Against cars, you're not really racing. Now, that's just the way I look at it. I know some people will not agree with that, and that's fine. Drivers have every right to defend against drivers that are 3 seconds quicker than them. I just don't think it's very smart racecraft, if I'm completely honest with you. Maybe I just think it's something that people should consider in their racing. It's going to have another bit of a sort of example here. P4, who we've caught up again with very quickly, fought with me from the beginning of the lap right through to this point here. Eventually we get the overrun down towards the Dunlop curve. Still not wanting to surrender that position though. Just keeps turning into me. It's actually okay to be overtaken. The best drivers in the world get overtaken sometimes. I've been overtaken plenty. Don't take it as an insult, let's put it that way. So come towards the end of this second race here, we are in P number 6, we've made some good progress through the grid. We're onto the hard tyres now at the end of the race. Now Aggrionator here is going to go wide on the run down to Dunlop curve. Now I wouldn't necessarily think this move would be on, but I do know he's going to have dirty tyres at this point, so we'll be very late into the Dunlop curve. Managed to keep the car alongside all the way out. That's just purely because the Swiss driver's got dirt on his tyres. That move is almost impossible with equal drivers and equal sort of tyre life and compound. But again, just notice these little things if you see a driver go onto the dirt and try and predict whether they're going to have those dirty tyres. So on to the last lap of this second race, and we are right behind the championship host. And we were looking to try and maybe get a move down into the chicane, but we actually make a mistake into those two corners there. And instead of looking for the move into the chicane, we're actually going to have to defend. Now we did see us take a quick look behind there, and I can see that Halbstadt, there we take another look, has got a half-second penalty. Now I know that's going to be applied at the end of the race. Now we do go defensive into the chicane. Halbstadt makes a really optimistic move round the outside. We do give him the space, but he has carried too much speed and has to cut the chicane there. That's going to result in him picking up a further half-second penalty. Now when I seen him on my radar on the inside there, I realised he's got a penalty. He's just going to get that applied at the end of the race, and we're going to regain that position anyway. So the tip there, or the racecraft, just don't fight people with penalties. There's no point if they want to do something like that. And it was a perfectly legitimate overtake attempt, but I knew that I was going to get the position back at the finish line. Instead of trying to fight it, maybe risk losing the position to the Swiss driver who was behind us at that point as well. So that's just my thoughts on some racecraft over these two races we did here. Hopefully brings some useful information in there. As I said, you might well agree with some of the things I've said, you might well disagree, and that's absolutely fine. What thing I can say is I use pretty much, well, I use everything that I've said in this video during my racing, whether it's attacking other drivers or defending. I'm quite happy to let a driver who appears to be a second a lap or a second and a half lap quicker than me just go by with minimal fuss. So I'm not just saying these things and then not using them myself. I can very much assure you that I do put all these into practice myself. But hopefully you've enjoyed this video. At the very least there was some good racing action there anyway to enjoy, if nothing else. Do hit that like button, do hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And until the next video, thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you on the next one. Goodbye now.